Taoiseach, today the Government will publish its summer economic statement, and this will be the 13th such statement published by Fine Gael-led governments, including governments led by yourself, and it marks an important part in the budget process. And it's true to say that the Irish economy has much to celebrate. We're a home of exciting businesses, both established and emerging, a young population and a talented, agile workforce, and a record tax take. And all of this is to be welcomed, and none of it is to be taken for granted. But that is also true in that throughout this same period, housing has deteriorated into a disaster, and the crisis in health has gotten worse day by day, with no prospects of improving. And our young people are once again emigrating as they lose hope of having a future here in Ireland. Workers and families are not getting the services for the taxes that they pay, and in fact, their taxes are being wasted by Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil consistently. And this is happening despite being in government for more than a decade. You are still failing to get the fundamentals right in health, in housing, in planning, in delivering large-scale projects on budget and on time. Instead, we've seen a continuation of slow and gridlocked politics and a complete failure to get the basics right so that we can deal with the challenges of today and plan for the future. And that is why, Taoiseach, we need a change of direction. So while today's statement will tell us very little of the measures that will be included on October's budget, the needs for workers and for families and for public services are very clear. Workers and families continue to face the biggest cost of living crisis in a generation. Energy bills remain sky high as a result of government inaction, while mortgage costs continue to rise. They face a deepening housing crisis, a housing crisis that was created and overseen by Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, and which worsens by the day. Rents continue to spiral upwards, and home ownership remains beyond the reach of tens of thousands of workers and families across the state. The national shame of homelessness continues unabated. The numbers of homelessness are breaking all records for all the wrong reasons. And this crisis is a direct result of your government's policies. In our health service, we have nearly 900,000 people in hospital waiting lists. We've had the worst level of hospital overcrowding last month since records began. And that is why we don't need more of the same. It is why we need a change in direction. It is why we need delivery, because our people are sick and tired of listening to government making announcement after announcement and empty promises while you fail to deliver on the core issues. Year after year, you have failed to deliver affordable homes, a failure to address rising waiting lists in our hospitals, and a failure to address the cost of living crisis. So year after year, these problems haven't got better. Indeed, they have got worse. So, Taoiseach, you've had 12 years. You've had 12 years to deliver, some of them as Taoiseach. So can I ask you, how will you ensure that what is announced today will be any different and will continue to fail on those fundamental core areas, or that you finally have got it and that you are about to change direction and provide the resources that are required to deal with these problems that have only worsened on your watch?
Thanks, Deputy. At around 4:30 this afternoon, the Government will publish the summer economic statement, and it sets out, as you said, the fiscal parameters for budget 2024. That is the budget package for next year, which will be announced in October. I am satisfied that it provides the kind of multi-billion euro response required to help families with the cost of living, providing for a significant welfare and pensions package, as well as for greater tax fairness. It strikes the balance in terms of where we are in the economic cycle, because we want to continue to be prudent with the national finances. We have, as the Deputy will know, full employment for only the second time in a generation, and will record a budget surplus again next year. I particularly want to thank Ministers McGrath and Ministers Donoghue for their work on the document. And Deputy, the reason why we will be able to produce the summer economic statement that we are this afternoon is because we have full employment. We have rising incomes and we have record levels of trade and investment. And because of that, the Ministers this afternoon will set out the parameters of the next budget, which will include a tax package of over €1 billion to help working families put more money in their pockets, reward work and help with the cost of living, and a spending package much greater than that, allowing for increases in pension, increases in welfare, and also spending in areas that are so important, like health, housing and education, to be increased. And will also indicate that we will set aside all, or at least close to all, of the windfall corporation tax receipts, because we do not believe it is right to make spending commitments that may be recurrent using tax receipts that may be transitory. So that money will be used to help pay down debt, to be set aside for future things like pension liabilities, infrastructure projects and demographics, and also a small increase in capital investment in the near term. But Deputy, where you're absolutely wrong is your assumption that a change of government would somehow make the situation better. Of course a change of government would make things much worse. If we pursued the economic policies that your party advocated, going back 12 years ago when you aligned yourselves with Syriza and Varoufakis and burning the bondholders and all of that, to your policies after that where you said we should borrow more, to your anti-business policies after that, if we'd followed the advice that we got from Sinn Féin for the past 12 years, we'd have a very different summer economic statement today. We wouldn't be talking about full employment. We'd be talking about how we would find money to pay job seekers benefit. We wouldn't be talking about record levels of trade and investment. We'd be talking about a budget deficit, how we are going to borrow the money to close that deficit, at what the interest rate would be, and how we would curtail spending and increase taxes to cover that. The reason why we have full employment, the reason why we have a budget surplus, the reason why we can have tax cuts, the reason why we can increase pensions, the reason why we can increase welfare, the reason why we can invest more in health and housing and education is because we didn't have a Sinn Féin government for the past 12 years.
And the reason why we have record levels of homelessness in this state is because you're in government and Fine Gael in government. The reason why that rents are out of control is because you're in government and Fine Gael is in government. The reason why an entire generation have given up and are emigrating to places in Sydney and Toronto and New York and London is because Fine Gael are in government and they have locked home ownership beyond the reach of an entire generation. Now, Taoiseach, you have been in government for 13 years. 12 years. This is your 13th budget. We have had the highest record ever of overcrowding in our hospitals. So you can talk about the millions and the billions, but people in my constituency want to know that if they get admitted to the hospital, that they won't have to lie in a trolley or a chair for over a day. They want to know that their son and daughter will be able to afford to rent an apartment in this state. They want to know that they will be able to live in this state. They want to know that families that are currently in emergency accommodation, that as a society we are able to respond to that and not to see it deteriorate month on month, which is happening under your watch. So I have asked you, for your 13th budget, do you recognise that the crisis that we have in housing and in health, in homelessness as a result of your government policy, and will there be anything in the summer economic statement that acknowledges a change of direction, or is it more of the same, Fine Gael head in their sand, and the situation on housing and health will continue to get worse?